Alright guys, welcome to the video today. In this one I'm going to be talking about how to develop your stamina and muscular endurance. Now a good deal of the stamina that I possess comes from simply just doing the activity, so doing my martial arts training, whether that's hitting the bag, hitting pads, sparring or something like that. But there are other things that I do kind of outside of that regular sort of skill specific practice that I'm going to be focusing on today that can also help in this area. So stamina is obviously something that's incredibly important in martial arts. You know, like, it's all good to be able to throw a really nice, explosive and impressive combo, but if you gas out after doing that a couple of times, then you're going to be pretty much useless. So stamina is just as important as all the other skills we learn in martial arts, so make sure you're putting some time aside in your training to do that. So what I'm going to talk about first are some of the ways that you can develop stamina in your training and how that's going to benefit you in your martial arts practice, and then afterwards I'm going to give you a workout and demonstrate different exercises, so it's something you can basically follow along at home to develop your martial arts specific endurance. One thing I do want to mention actually in terms of sort of conserving that energy when you're training is in martial arts it's absolutely imperative to remain relaxed throughout your training sessions, and that's with whatever you're doing. Now it seems kind of paradoxical on the surface, especially to people with a little bit less experience, because you see people moving in these super explosive and powerful ways and it looks on the surface like that would use a lot of muscular force in order to do that, but it's actually the opposite and it requires relaxation, only using the muscles at certain times when you wish to execute an explosive strike, and then coming back to that relaxation point once again afterwards. Now you've probably seen a lot of professional boxers and martial artists will do a lot of running, and some of them will run anywhere from 5 to 10 miles every single day to build that stamina. What I've built into my day as well is every time I go to the gym I like to cycle there, and I have actually got a BMX and they also have no gears, so this makes it doubly challenging whenever you're cycling up hills and things like that. They're actually quite hard to ride. So it kind of acts as like a mini little warm-up and also builds a bit of stamina in every single time I go and train. So you might want to look for something like that. I think Bruce Lee used to say that you should get a bicycle, but it should be a really shit bike so that you're having to do a lot of work on it. It shouldn't be something that rides really smooth, so that might be something you'd like to do as well. So what I'd suggest that you do is keep the exercises that you're doing quite martial arts centric, or at least pick exercises and movement patterns that closely reflect martial arts so that you're not drifting too far out of that skill set. An example of what not to do in this regard would be something that's very slow, that isn't really like martial arts. You know, martial arts is an incredibly explosive and fast activity, so it makes sense to choose exercises that mirror that. Now obviously I'm going to be pretty biased with this, but I believe that the workout that I'm going to demonstrate later on, and this way of working out is really the best way of working out, obviously because it suits my activity, but it's also very low stress on the body despite doing a lot of intense movements, and it's something that you can do absolutely anywhere. You really don't need any fancy equipment, you know, expensive gym memberships or supplements to develop your stamina. So don't buy into that stuff. You can get in amazing shape just doing home workouts. Now the way that I tailor the movements in these workouts is I'm not moving very slow and controlled, but I'm also not moving at a really intense speed of hit. It's somewhere in the middle. And the way I do this, it increases stamina and muscular endurance at the same time as building that strength. So I'm trying to sort of hit all points in doing this. So as I mentioned before, the way that you execute these exercises is going to have a different effect upon your body. And you might have seen the agility video, the developing agility video I did as part of the Pioneer a few months ago, and I spoke about this there, where the exercises in that video were designed to be done in a way where you were constantly switching between different directions in order to develop the muscles that contribute to your agility. And the more sort of small, subtle breaks you get in between, then the muscles have a chance to relax and they're not under that tension and they won't develop as much. Now obviously if you haven't got any experience in doing these types of exercises, or you're not very fit already, then you're going to have to work your way up to moving the way I am doing in this video. And I don't want you to obviously burn yourself out and destroy your muscles in pursuit of trying to just copy what I'm doing. But do bear that in mind, that the more and more times you do this types of exercise, that the benefits come from being able to speed up, and that's how you develop into those, that translates into your martial arts skills. So I've noticed a lot of martial artists that just train at a very sort of slow and rhythmic pace, that they never really develop beyond that level because their body isn't under any sufficient stress to sort of cause that further development. The way I always like to structure my workouts is using round timers rather than rep numbers, because I find that if you have a certain time, say 30 seconds, to repeat an exercise again and again and again, I find that it's just a very easy way to adapt and add more intensity into those movements. So a person who's a complete beginner can use that 30 seconds, or someone who's very advanced, but the levels are going to be much different. So that's why I like to use this, and it also gives the workouts a much higher degree of replayability, you could call it as well, because, you know, as you start to improve you can just add more intensity on, or you can slightly variate the movements to make them more difficult for yourself so that you can constantly improve. So before we go into the exercises, I'm just going to explain a little bit about how this workout works. So what you do is you repeat each of these exercises for a total of 30 seconds, and you do that for 3 rounds without a break, and only after that you break for 30 seconds before moving on to the next set of exercises and repeat the process. Alright guys, so first thing I'm doing here, literally just doing some jump rope to warm up. I'm doing a few different movements here obviously, but if you're not very experienced with jump rope, you don't have to do anything fancy. Literally just jump over the rope, and I'll do this for about 2 minutes. So this is just my first round where I'm going kind of slow, just doing a little bit of footwork. So this is just an example of me moving a little bit quicker with the jump rope now. I'm just doing similar movements to what I did before, but going a little bit faster to warm myself up for the full workout. So next part of my warm-up that I always like to do is just a little bit of shadow boxing. You can see how I'm not really going very quick here. I'm just going really slow, just warming up some techniques. And even though I'm not doing, martial arts specifically in this workout, it's going to be more body weight exercises. I just like to do this all the time anyway, just to kind of keep repeating those techniques. So I'll do 1 round just at that speed, and then this round is a little bit quicker. And you know how I'm always talking about constantly learning the skill, constantly repeating the movements? I find this is just a nice way to get a little bit more repetition in of those movements, even if I'm not doing a martial arts specific workout. So now I'm just doing some very loose stretches. I like to always stretch my shoulders out a bit because there's some push-up exercises in here, and you can just stretch in any way you want with this. I don't like to stretch too much, just a little bit to get me going for the workout, because as we do these movements, they're going to kind of limber you up as you go anyway. So this exercise I like to call a chair squat, and I know it looks a little bit weird, but if you try these out, you'll find pretty quickly that these are absolutely killer for the legs. They're really, really good exercise. And the main thing is that you need to keep your body sort of level in that squat position throughout. And you see when I come into the center, my butt doesn't really move too much. If you were doing this incorrectly, you would kind of stand up more in the middle. So keep the core strong throughout in order to be able to do this. Now the next one is a favourite of mine, which is the side-to-side touchdown, and the main thing that you need to do with this is make sure you're taking quite a few steps in between these movements. If you're not taking enough steps, you're not really going to get the benefit of it, because this is going to build your footwork and your stamina at the same time. And what you want to do is make sure that before your centre of gravity kind of resets onto one side, you're already activating, going the other way. So that's really important with this one, just to keep, like I said, those muscles under that tension. Next is a push-up exercise, and I'm doing this variation where I like to shoot my legs out, because when you're at that bottom position, you have to keep your core nice and strong in order to push your body back up. And then I do that into 2 toe touches. So can you see the sort of speed and intensity I'm going into these? Don't try and replicate this at the detriment of your body and, burning your muscles out. But can you see how I don't really have pauses in between these exercises? And this is what has made me nice and fast and agile, and obviously also develop that stamina and muscular endurance at the same time. So the first exercise of the second round is this squat thrust into a lunging motion, and make sure you keep your core nice and tight when you do these. I'm alternating legs each one I do, and again I'm doing them at speed. You can see how I'm off the floor and up straight away. This is going to really build that explosive speed and also your cardiovascular endurance as well, because you're in that constantly moving state. When you do these, make sure you go down low enough to the floor obviously to get the benefits on your legs, but don't go too low to where you obviously don't want to smash your knee off the floor, so just be careful of that as well. Now this next one's a little bit difficult, so if you can't do it, don't worry about it. You can just substitute this for regular push-ups instead. And what I'm doing here is I'm going down and I'm lifting the same leg as the same hand on this, and I'm trying to keep my body parallel to the floor without twisting outwards. And this really, really helps with your stability and your core strength as well. In this next one, what I'm doing is I'm touching down with the same leg that lifts up where I lift the knee. And what you want to do with these is keep the core nice and engaged and get into these motions quickly. You remember how I said before about the movements kind of mimicking martial arts? So it's going to use those fast twitch fibers. Now make sure you're doing these without those little pauses if you can, in order to get the most benefit from it. Now after your 30-second break there, we're just going to do a little bit of a burnout by doing some punching. So I'm doing just some straights here, and then in a moment I'm going to go into some uppercut motions. Make sure you're rolling your shoulders. You're going to do this for 30 seconds. And the last thing you're going to do here is just hold in the hollow position for as long as you can. So you want to hold this until literally you can't hold it anymore. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you found it beneficial and it's given you something to work alongside your martial arts training in order to improve your stamina and muscular endurance. Now obviously it goes without saying that in order to keep improving in this, you're going to have to cover the basics like getting adequate sleep, making sure you're eating sensibly and things like that, so that you can improve that intensity. And if you remember, I said before, you want to work at In this type of working out, you want to work at being able to build more speed and intensity into the movement so that you're not having those little breaks in between. And every time you're making those little pauses, the muscles get a chance to relax, whereas as you become more skilled and you're able to do it in one whole movement, the muscles are constantly under tension, and that's when you really get the benefits of it. So make sure that you're able to improve that way. Like I said, getting things like sleep covered so that you're able to rest properly, so when you come into your training next time, you're going to be very nice and sharp. And another thing I want to mention as well that I've been doing more lately is really hydrating before the sessions. I already drink a lot of water anyway, but before my sessions lately I've been making sure that I have a considerable amount more literally just before I leave for the gym. And I've noticed a really big improvement in my energy levels, especially towards the end of the session. My energy remains quite constant, whereas in the past I would notice it start to flag a bit, and that's just through adequate hydration. Now, if you have done this workout or if you have any questions about it, please just leave these in the comments. I'm always really interested to hear how you found it, or if you've implemented the things that I'm teaching in these videos. It's always very helpful to know that. And with this workout that I gave as well, you can either do this as a full workout just on its own day when you're not doing anything else, or you can do a sort of shortened version, perhaps with shorter round times at the end of some other martial arts training. You can tailor it to yourself. All right, thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.